Pride weekend in the Twin Cities. The Pride Festival is here. The Pride Parade is on Sunday. And it got me thinking about being gay in America and if it's better or worse today. Welcome your input on this. It's 651-461-9226. And I got thinking about this because Lavender Magazine, which has been such a tremendous part of the Twin Cities community since 1995. That's when the first issue came out. The final issue just published. 31 years of Lavender Magazine. And sometimes there's benefit to stepping back and taking the wide view of issues. Because Lavender wrote this, the editor, Stephen, and the staff in this editorial wrote, when Lavender published its first issue, there were virtually no gay rights in the United States and in Minnesota. However, with the passage of time and in short order, history marched on and Lavender beat the drum for equality in Minnesota. The U.S. Supreme Court made national law and gays achieved marriage rights nationally in 2015 in Obergefell versus Hodges. It was a fitting moment to celebrate Lavender's 20th anniversary. Today, Lavender is 31, and the rights have been uniformly achieved and systematized. Gays can go into any restaurant or bar as a group, have dinner, drinks, and no one would say another word. We have arrived. The goals for Lavender's founders have been achieved. I thought that was a really interesting reflection because we live in sort of an emergency crisis culture, right? There's always a crisis. There's always an existential crisis. Everything is life or death. Every decision is the end of the world. Every policy that is brought forth is a sense that we might lose what we got. And I understand that, right? I am well aware of the fact that I am a 51-year-old talk show host who spent 20 plus years in the public eye. I never really have to fear losing any of my rights. I just don't. Doesn't mean I can't understand the plight of those who do fear that. And I do understand why people who were never part of the majority would be worried about stepping backwards. But I do think on Pride weekend, it is worth taking that longer view. And my view is that it's a terrific time to be in a same-sex relationship. That when you look at history, it is a terrific time to be yourself, to live your truth, to be gay. It is not perfect. It doesn't mean there's not more progress to be made. But consider the fact that, I grew up Catholic. We believed the religious teaching of the church that there was something abnormal, something wrong about being gay. Today, I think if you talk to most American Catholics, they would say, yeah, the teaching of the church is that the preference is for a man and a woman to be married. And the belief in my soul is that love is love and no one should be discriminated against for who they love. And no one should be discriminated against when it comes to housing, when it comes to employment, based on who they love. And I do think the people who ran the campaign in Minnesota to gain acceptance for same-sex marriage, honestly, my view is that legalizing same sex marriage didn't only improve the lives of people who are in gay couples, I think they changed and opened a lot of minds. The amount of good that was done by that campaign, I think we don't fully understand the lasting impact that that campaign had on so many lives. Now, my belief is that, and this is maybe a little nuanced, a little complicated. My belief is that there has never been a better time to be gay in America, and there's never been a worse time because the hate is flying much more freely than it has in recent years. And I shouldn't say never been a worse time because there have certainly been worse times where you didn't have the right to marry. You didn't have the right to walk into whatever restaurant where you were discriminated against openly in hiring. But I will say that I am concerned. I am concerned about a normalization of hate. And what I can't tell is if that hate is more widespread or if it's just louder and more open. And we saw again this week what happened with Pete Buttigieg, where he was the victim of a swatting tip. And we've had a number of politicians in this state, including conservative politicians, who have been victimized by anonymous reports that come into police. In this case, Buttigieg's kids had to sit with Children's Protection Services and do interviews. They were separated for a day. And it's the worst thing. He says, "This is the ugliest thing that has happened to me since my career in service has begun." I would think so. And it happened right after the Buttigiegs shared images of their family for Father's Day. Outrageous. What I think is different today, though, is that people call it out. So the hate is worse, but the response, I think, is also open and aggressive and should be. So are there red flags? Are there moments for concern? I think yes. But we also, I think, should celebrate the progress that's happened in our lifetime. And for me, would have been unimaginable because my mind didn't even conceive that it was possible. So I'm so thankful to the activists and to the gay leaders who just showed people who were brought up in a way to think like this is not okay, how wrong we were. And love is beautiful, and we need to celebrate that. And so happy Pride, and it's going to be a great weekend to be here in Minnesota.